Welcome to Gaia's Calling, where stories ignite your spirit and the earth whispers her secrets. I'm Brad Swift, a write-on-purpose author of eco-fiction and nonfiction, inviting you to become an eco-guardian. Together, let's explore the wonders of our world and take action to protect them. Listen closely, Gaia is calling. And today's call, the stories that shape our world, and why humanity's future may depend on what we imagine next. Now, I'd like to make an observation. This is being my first podcast recording in my new outdoor office, which is adjacent to our new living space on the lower level of our home. So, if you hear some extraneous sounds like, birds, squirrels, or traffic, please excuse those. Rascal may even chime in from time to time. He's down here lying at my feet. So, let's dig into today's topic. Over the next few weeks, I'd like to invite you into an exploration of an idea that has been quietly growing and important for me. It sits at the intersection of my work as an author, my role as a grandfather, my one-cause experiment, and even my write-on-purpose coaching practice, and my growing conviction that stories may matter far more than most of us realize. The idea is called Thrutopia. Now, if that word is new to you, don't worry. A few months ago, it was new to me as well. In this first article, I don't want to explain Thrutopia so much as explore why it matters. Why stories matter, why imagination matters, and why the future we create together may depend upon the stories we choose to tell ourselves and each other. Let me begin with a simple story. A few weeks ago, I was spending time outdoors with my beautiful grandkids, 5-year-old Logan and 3-year-old Piper. We were in the backyard where there's a fantastic playground set up that has been the site for many of our adventures. This day was no exception. One moment, we were climbing the ropes of a pirate ship. The next, we were in a spaceship flying to Mars. Then, in the blinking of an eye, we were dragon riders. To Logan and Piper's, these weren't merely games. They were possibilities. They were rehearsals for who they might someday become. Watching these two beautiful children, I was reminded that long before children learn facts, they learn stories. Long before they understand economics or politics or even climate science, they begin constructing an understanding of how the world works through narrative. Who are the good guys? Who are the bad guys? What happens when challenges arise? Can ordinary people make a difference? Is the future something to fear or something to help create? Now, one of our favorite shows to watch with Logan and Piper these days is Bluey. On the surface, it's a delightful animated series about a family of Australian dogs, which already in my book is a winner. But beneath the humor and playful adventures are stories about imagination, kindness, resilience, creativity, friendship, and the importance of family and community. Episode after episode, children are quietly absorbing messages about what it means to be human. And perhaps, just as importantly, adults are too. Stories answer these questions long before logic does. They help children and grown-ups develop an internal map of reality. They shape what we believe is possible, what we expect from others, and what kind of future we imagine ourselves inhabiting. And then it struck me. Maybe adults aren't all that different. Most people assume the future is created by politicians or corporations or technological breakthroughs and economic forces. Now, certainly those things do matter, but I'm not so sure that's where the future begins. I think the future begins in imagination. Before every nation, there was an idea. Before every movement, there was a story. Before every invention, there was someone who imagined something that didn't yet exist. The Wright brothers imagined human flight. Martin Luther King Jr. imagined a different America. Jane Goodall imagined a different relationship between humans and the natural world. Every meaningful change begins twice, first in imagination and then in reality. Stories are the bridge between those two worlds. The more I've reflected on this, the more I've begun to see that many of the challenges we face today are not simply political, environmental, or economic. They are also narrative challenges. We are living amid what many people call the polycrisis, a convergence of climate disruption, political polarization, technological upheaval, economic uncertainty, social fragmentation, and a growing crisis of meaning. Yet beneath all of these challenges lie a deeper question. What story are we telling ourselves about who we are and where we're headed? Because the dominant story many people seem to be living inside right now goes something like this. The world is broken. Human beings are the problem, or at least those other humans who don't agree with me. Everything is getting worse, and the future is something to fear. If we're honest, much of the entertainment reinforces exactly that narrative. Turn on the television, scroll through streaming services, or browse the bestseller shelves. Dystopian futures are everywhere. Civilizations collapse. Artificial intelligence takes over. The environment falls apart. Communities disintegrate. People betray one another. Now, to be clear, I understand why these stories resonate. I've written a few of my own, including The Stars Beckon, Babel, and Rabble. They often contain important warnings. They can help us see dangers we might otherwise ignore. But warnings alone rarely inspire transformation. As I recently learned during a Gaia's Call 2.0 conversation with Amanda Scott, and if you happen to be here on Substack or on the app, there's a link there to that amazing conversation. People don't change simply because they're frightened. They change when they can see something worth moving towards. That insight landed deeply for me because when I look around, I don't see a shortage of warnings. I see a shortage of compelling visions. I see a shortage of believable pathways towards a future people actually want to inhabit. I see a shortage of stories that tell the truth without surrendering hope. And perhaps that's one reason so many people feel stuck. Human beings can endure remarkable hardship when they see meaning and purpose and possibility on the other side. Without that, fear easily becomes paralysis. This is where I find myself increasingly drawn to the idea that writers and artists, musicians, filmmakers, and teachers, and podcasters, and other creatives have a larger role to play than we often realize. Yes, creatives like you and me. Not because creatives possess all the answers. Lord knows I don't. The deeper I dive into the polycrisis, the more aware I become of how much I don't know. But perhaps our role has never been to provide answers. Perhaps our role is to expand what people can imagine. After all, before we can build a different future, we must first be able to see it and feel it. That realization has been quietly changing how I think about storytelling, about my own fiction, about Gaia's Call, about One Cause, and even about the conversations I have with Logan and Piper. It has led me also to a fascinating question. Why is it that so many of our stories about the future seem trapped between two extremes? On one side, we find the dystopias, stories that warn us where our current path may lead. On the other side, we find utopias, visions of a perfected future that often feels disconnected from the messy reality of getting there. One leaves us frightened. The other probably leaves us skeptical. Yet it seems to me there ought to be another possibility. What if there were stories courageous enough to tell the truth about the challenges we face, while also helping us imagine realistic pathways towards a world we would actually want our grandchildren to inherit? What if stories could help us move beyond both blind optimism and doom-filled pessimism? That question led me to discover a growing movement known as Thrutopia, and it may turn out to be one of the most important storytelling movements of our time. So, in preparation for next week's article, I'd like to invite you into a simple experiment. Pay attention to the stories you encounter over the coming days, the books you read, the movies and television shows you watch, the news you consume, the conversations you have with your family and friends. As you do so, just ask yourself the question, what future is this story inviting me into? Is it inviting me towards fear or possibility? Towards helplessness, as in learned helplessness, or agency? Towards isolation or connection? Towards resignation or participation? You don't need to judge the answer, simply notice them. Because once you begin paying attention, you may discover that stories are shaping far more of our worldview than you previously realized. In fact, they may be shaping our expectation of the future itself. And that brings us to where we'll begin next week. We'll explore Thrutopia, what it is, where it came from, and why an increasing number of writers, thinkers, and changemakers believe it offers something our culture desperately needs right now. Stories that tell the truth about where we are while illuminating believable pathways towards where we might yet go. Until then, pay attention to the stories. They may be shaping the future more than any of us realize. And I'd like to provide an update on my Right on Purpose coaching. Since starting my small animal veterinary practice back in 1989, wow, that was a long time ago, I've been on a joyful adventure that has blended two lifelong passions, writing and transformational coaching. A few years ago, I brought those passions together through Right on Purpose coaching, helping aspiring and emerging authors move from that one day I'd like to write a book to today, let's get started. Then in late 2024, I took a hiatus from coaching to focus on my own writing, including much of what many of you have been reading here in Substack. Today I'm excited to announce I'm returning to Right on Purpose coaching. And yes, don't worry, I'll continue to be writing as well. Over the years, I've discovered that most people don't struggle because they lack talent. They struggle because they lack clarity or confidence or accountability, or simply someone who believes in them before they fully believe in themselves. That's why I continue to offer complimentary creative clarity sessions. Whether you have an idea for a book, maybe a manuscript gathering dust, or a completed draft that's waiting for its next step, this conversation is designed to help you move forward. You'll leave with greater clarity about your book and the deeper purpose behind it. You'll have a practical roadmap for what comes next, and renewed momentum and confidence to move your writing and perhaps your life itself forward. One of my clients described me as the person you want to have your back. Another said our work together helped her become not only a better writer, but a deeper and more authentic human being. These words mean a lot because they capture what Right on Purpose is really about. Yes, we write books, but we also author our lives. And sometimes the very thing standing between us and the book we're meant to write is a conversation that helps us see what is possible. If you've been carrying a book inside you for months, years, or even decades, consider this your invitation. The world doesn't need more unfinished manuscripts hidden away in drawers and hard drives. It needs your story, your wisdom, your experience, and your unique voice. Don't let your book die within you. Instead, let's explore what's possible together. To schedule a complimentary creative clarity session, visit wbradfordswift.com/coach. I'd be honored to have your back and support you on your Write on Purpose journey.